Hello and very warm welcome to the Canada News with your host Divya. Now let's take a look on the headlines. Speaking on the Budget Implementation Act 2021, MP Sonia Sidhu claimed that current budget would be beneficial to Canadians. NDP MP Gurratan Singh said that Brampton has the highest number of cases that essential services workers also live in the city. Andrea Harwood raised the issue that the military was called 5 days late despite the Prime Minister deteriorating situation, which is completely wrong. Now news in detail. Speaking on the Budget Implementation Act 2021, MP Sonia Sidhu claimed that current budget would be beneficial to Canadians as Canadians struggle with the third wave of COVID-19. The government has focused on the financial support as well as vaccinations. Sidhu specifically mentioned the steps taken for seniors.
Speaker, this past year has been challenge for all Canadian, and today it's my honor to represent Brampton South to speak in support of Bill C-30, the Budget 2021 Implementation Act. In Budget 2021, the priority is to support Canadians through the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic and create more jobs and prosperity for all Canadians across the country. This budget outlines the many challenges Canadians have faced throughout the past year and recognizes that Canadians need support in order to recover financially from this pandemic. As more and more people are eligible to get vaccinated, businesses are still in need of support to make it through this third wave of the pandemic. That is why this government is extending businesses and income support initiative through to the fall. Today, I would like to focus on some key areas for my community. Mr. Speaker, during the series of pre-budget consultation, I have met with many businesses and many seniors from Brampton. Seniors including organizations such as CARP, International Senior Club, Young at Heart Seniors, and others. With Budget 2021, Brampton seniors will not be left behind. Many seniors find it difficult to adjust their financial situation after retirement, especially in the pandemic. This is why the government is providing a one-time payment of $500 this summer to those 75 years and older as of June 2022. An essential aid for seniors who have been impacted by COVID-19. Old age benefits will also be increased by 10% for seniors over 75 years as well, and will be adjusted annually for inflation. All of these actions proposed in Budget 2021 will help our seniors live a more independent life and a dignified retirement. One of my constituents, Marna Adams, who is a member of our local CARP, requested that more action is to be done to prevent elder abuse in Canada. Mr. Speaker, through you, I'm happy to report to my constituents and all Canadians watching the Budget 2021 will provide funding for the Public Health Agency of Canada to design and deliver intervention that prevent family violence, including elder abuse.
NDP MP Gurratan Singh said that Brampton has the highest number of cases and the essential services workers also live in the city. Therefore, the government should provide more than 3 days of paid sick leave and increase the supply of vaccines. The Labour Minister thanked everyone and claimed that this was the first government to implement paid sick leave.
2 weeks ago, all of Canada was talking about Brampton's COVID-19 crisis. We had one of the highest positivity rates in the entire country. Countless people were getting sick and many were dying. Tragic stories from Brampton were being heard across our nation, from the utterly devastating accounts of loss of life to essential workers who had to choose between going to work sick and paying the bills. But despite all this national attention, 2 weeks later, the Conservative government continues to fail Brampton. We still have one of the highest positivity rates in the entire country, and essential workers are still getting sick. Workers are risking their lives every single day, moving this economy so others can work from home. They deserve more than 3 paid sick days. Will the Conservative government commit today to treating workers with the dignity that they deserve by bringing in 2 weeks of paid sick days?
Minister of Labour, Training and Skills Development.
Well, thank you very much, and I want to begin by thanking the member opposite for supporting our government's legislation to pass a comprehensive package that includes 23 days of paid sick leave in record time here in the legislature. Thank you to the NDP. Thank you to the independent Liberals for joining with our government to ensure that workers do not have to choose between their job and their health. I can assure the member opposite we're going to continue working every single day to protect the health and safety of every single worker until we defeat COVID-19 once and for all.
Any supplementary question?
Thank you. Back to the Premier. When you're in a crisis, you don't do the bare minimum. You pull out all the stops. You do everything possible to save lives. But from the beginning of this pandemic, we have seen a clear track record from the Conservative government. They are continually doing the least possible to help Ontarians. Half measures are continually being brought forward and not enough help is being given to communities that need it the most. Now, the Conservative government is warning that Ontarians should be prepared for at least 2 weeks of a stay-at-home order and closure. But while they've warned of longer lockdowns, the truth is the Conservative government had every opportunity to stop the third wave, just like they had every opportunity to get this crisis under control sooner. Both times, instead, they chose to stand by and do nothing. We need more paid sick days, we need more vaccines, and we need more support for hotspot communities. We're in a crisis and people are dying. When will the Conservative government start acting like it?
The issue has been hotly debated since reports from the long-term care center's leader of the opposition, Andrea Harwood, raised the issue that the military was called 5 days late despite the Prime Minister deteriorating situation, which is completely wrong. In response, the government claimed that concrete steps had been taken by the government and the situation was brought under control with the help of armed forces.
We know that the Long-Term Care Commission obtained notes from the Minister of Long-Term Care regarding what was happening in long-term care with COVID-19. On April the 17th, 2020, just last year when we were in the first wave, this is what the Minister had jotted down in her notebook, and I quote, "Military plan needed. Get them within 24 to 48 hours. Homes spiral down quickly." The Premier didn't ask for the Canadian Armed Forces to help Ontario until 5 days after that note was jotted down, and they didn't arrive until 12 days later. In fact, they didn't arrive to Downsview until early June. So the question is, why did the Premier wait 5 days after this note was written by the Minister to actually call the CAF to get some help to those homes?
And to reply, the Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the Leader of the Opposition is correct in how important the Armed Forces was to helping us stabilize some of the homes through the first wave. Mr. Speaker, as you know, there was a whole-of-government effort, especially during the first wave, to improve capacity in our acute care system. As well as assist in the long-term care system, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned yesterday, look, we were on the defense for a better part of a year when it came to fighting the first wave of COVID, ostensibly because of the situation that we had been left in by the previous government. We are making significant progress in ensuring that our long-term care system is better equipped, not only to handle future pandemics, God forbid that should happen again, but to provide the best quality of care for the people of the province of Ontario who have been so important in helping build this province. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary question.
Well, Speaker, the military debriefing notes tell quite the horrifying story of what they found in long-term care when they did arrive. 2 homes, Downsview and Hawthorne, were infested with cockroaches. They also found 26 seniors who died when all they needed was water. The Minister of Long-Term Care knew that the Canadian Armed Forces were needed on April 17th. And yet they didn't arrive for over 12 days. The Premier didn't even ask for them until 5 days after she was aware.
NDP National Leader Jagmeet Singh once again appealed to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to fix the paid sick leave program instead of pointing fingers at the provinces and to vaccinate Canadians as soon as possible, who say public safety is more important at this time to take action.
We're going to continue to push to have the federal government improve the paid sick leave. This is vital. It will save lives. It is not useful for the Prime Minister, for Justin Trudeau, to be pointing fingers and blaming other provinces or territories. it is useful to improve the existing program so that people can actually use it. The Liberal government knows that it's not where it needs to be. Justin Trudeau knows that it's not as flexible or covering enough of a worker's salary or as easy to access as it should be. They know this because the program hasn't had the uptake that they expected it should. We know this, so let's fix it. New Democrats have been calling to fix this program so people can get the help they need and we can keep people safe. We also need to get vaccines rapidly to everyone who needs it most, and our goal must be to vaccinate all Canadians as quickly as possible. Well, I would break it down. I think everybody is frustrated with lockdowns. I think that's a very normal thing. Everyone's frustrated and wants to know when we can start seeing our family again. Everyone wants to know when we can start going out and enjoying the connections that make our lives so important. Everyone is frustrated about that. So that's everybody. The specific anti-maskers, the people that are specifically fighting against masks, I'm thinking about the people that go to a store, a crowded store, pull down, don't wear a mask and then yell at people, purposefully trying to disrupt and agitate and attack people. Those people are there's clear links between the anti-maskers and people that are trying to take advantage of people's frustration. Just the same way we saw when people are worried about their jobs and they're worried about the cost of housing. And then some people on the extreme right try to blame new Canadians for that. And we know that that's a radicalizing technique that's used to blame new immigrants, to blame new Canadians, to blame people that look different for the problems that are really problems of society that we need to fix. So that's a playbook that the extreme right has used. And so there's clearly, if you look at the people that are speaking in terms of anti-mask and the people that are in the leadership and some of the people that are trying to use those events to recruit people to the extreme right, there's clearly a connection. But I want to make that distinction clear. There are legitimate frustrations that people are feeling. I would say everyone's feeling. I'm frustrated. Everyone's frustrated about the lockdowns. And there's people that are purposely contrary to things like the mask because they are purposely trying to divide people. That is a very different thing. And I think that it really heightens the responsibility of governments, particularly the federal government, to provide a clear plan. Let people know what do we need to do to get back to a place where we're safe again. How many people need to get vaccinated? How do we get there? The more transparency, the more clarity in that plan, the more it helps people who are frustrated. If we're uncertain about when this is all going to end, we have no clue what the goal is, it heightens the frustration, and that's understandable. So,
Ontario's Chief Medical Officer outlined vaccine rollout procedure in the province. They announced the first ban on the AstraZeneca vaccine in the province of Ontario. He also said that the decision was made because of the effects of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
So today, Ontario will be pausing the rollout and administration of the first or initial doses of AstraZeneca vaccine at this time. This decision was made out of an abundance of caution due to an observed increase in the rare blood clotting condition known as vaccine-induced immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia linked to AstraZeneca vaccine, or as we use VITT, VIT for short. As of May 8th, 651,012 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were administered with a rate of VITT of 0.9 per 100,000 doses administered. 202,873 doses of the Covishield vaccine were administered with a rate of VITT of 1 per 100,000 doses administered. However, over the last few days, there has been increased reports of VITT, in particular related to the AstraZeneca vaccine, with a rate of 1.7 per 100,000 doses administered. In collaboration with health experts at Public Health Ontario, the Science Advisory Table, and our federal, provincial, and territorial partners, we are reviewing the data to consider options for the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine for second doses and more broadly moving forward. Data from the UK points to a much reduced risk of VITT in second doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. And we look forward to providing more guidance in advance of people's needing to receive their second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine when their time for the second dose becomes at the correct moment. The decision to pause is also based on the increased and reliable supply of the Pfizer and the Moderna mRNA vaccines, and also our recent downward trend of cases. We're also seeing early promising results of administering 2 doses of different vaccines, and have asked the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI as we talk about, NACI, to provide direction on the interchangeability of COVID-19 vaccines.
British Columbia Premier John Horgan outlines government plan to implement paid sick leave. He said the program aims to reduce the gap in the benefiting from the Federal Recovery Benefit Program. Paid sick leave will be implemented for 3 days under the British Columbia Employment Program.
Unfortunately, the federal program has been difficult to access for workers. We raised the issue with the federal government. We were hopeful in the last federal budget that they would have corrected that problem, and unfortunately, they weren't able to do so. So as a result, the province is going to step up and fill that gap. No one should have to make that difficult choice between staying home when they're sick or going into work because they have an economic imperative to do so. Today, we're making that choice a little bit easier. Earlier this morning, the minister tabled Bill 13 that will support hard-hit businesses and make sure that workers don't have to make that tough choice. And we are going to, as of today, introduce 3 days of paid sick leave to the end of the calendar year. This will ensure workers will not lose pay. The relationship between the employer and the employee will remain the same, and working through the WorkSafe administration process will be able to quickly as possible. This is one of the challenges with the federal legislation. There was a gap between the time you took off and your ability to access the program. The federal government allocated $2.6 billion for a national program and have only been able to get $400 million out the door. That doesn't speak to the lack of need for the program. That speaks to the inadequacy of the construction of that program. And I will continue to work with the federal government to see what we can do about improving that for the long term. But as long as we have COVID-19 in our communities, we want to make sure that workers, businesses, and communities are safe. We're going to be consulting over the next 6 months with workers, with industry, with Indigenous peoples, and others to develop a long-term program. COVID-19 does not end the fact that we have a gap in our employee-employer relationship that puts people at risk. This is an opportunity to fix a problem that's been in existence for a long, long time. We're excited about doing that in collaboration with all parties. Paid sick leave is good for businesses, it's good for workers, and it's good for communities. And together, it'll help us come out of the COVID-19 pandemic stronger than we went in. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to talk to you about this issue today.
The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, has announced a $12 billion federal investment in 4 subway projects in Greater Toronto and the transit process in Hamilton. In addition, ventilators have been sent to India under the Nunavut COVID-19 response. He also informed about the COVID-19 vaccine rollout processes.
That's why we're working with Ontario to make improvements to public transit that people in the GTHA can count on. We're investing over $12 billion, including in 4 subway projects in the GTA and 1 rapid transit project in Hamilton. To begin with, we're investing in the Ontario Line project, which will bring rapid transit from Exhibition Place through downtown to the Ontario Science Centre. Anyone in Toronto can tell you that the subway is way too busy. Sometimes in rush hour, people have to wait for 2 or 3 trains to go by before they can even get on. This major investment will not only help deal with that, but also create thousands of good jobs and get gridlock traffic off the roads. The second project for the GTA is the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension. This will create a continuous rapid transit line along Eglinton Avenue between Scarborough and Mississauga, a part of the city that needs better crosstown service. Again, this will create jobs, lighten traffic, and keep air in the GTA cleaner. The third and fourth transit projects we're investing in for the GTA are the Yonge Street North Subway Extension and the Scarborough Subway Extension. On Yonge Street North, we're extending Line 1 north to Vaughan, Markham, and Richmond Hill. If you live in the north of the city, this means cutting down your commute by almost a half an hour. For people in Scarborough who don't currently have good transit options, this investment will mean 3 more stops along Line 2. That's what this investment means for the GTA. Here's what it means for Hamilton. We're going to provide major support for rapid transit in Hamilton for a line that will go from McMaster University in the west through downtown all the way to Eastgate Centennial Park in Stony Creek. Just like the transit projects in Toronto, this will support jobs, make people's commutes better, and cut down on pollution. This $12 billion in funding means people will get where they need to go faster, all with tens of thousands fewer cars on the road daily. In addition, part of this funding will go toward buying zero-emission streetcars for the TTC. Not only will these new streetcars help Toronto's air cleaner, this deal will also help protect good middle-class jobs at the Alstom automotive plant in Thunder Bay.
Canada's Transport Minister Omar Al-Gabara announced financial support for airport under the federal government's new funding program. He said that the federal government has introduced 2 programs to help aircraft during the COVID-19 epidemic, which will provide $65 million in assistance.
Pleased to announce the launch of 2 new programs to help Canada's airports recover from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the Airport Critical Infrastructure Program and the Airport Relief Fund. The Airport Critical Infrastructure Program will provide Canada's larger airports with close to $490 million for investments in safety, security, and large transit infrastructure. Through this program, we will invest in infrastructure which is critical to those airports and support projects that may have otherwise been at risk of being deferred or cancelled because of financial challenges due to the severe drop in traffic. Now, the Airport Relief Fund will provide $65 million in immediate financial relief to targeted Canadian airports to help them with maintaining operations. These new programs, originally announced in the Fall Economic Statement, will help ensure our airports continue to provide Canadians with safe, reliable, and efficient travel options. They will also help Canada work towards economic recovery as we move towards the gradual return of travel when it is safe to do so. In addition to these new funding programs, today I'm also announcing that the Airports Capital Assistance Program will receive a funding top-up of $186 million over the coming 2 years. This program provides financial assistance to Canada's local and regional airports for safety-related capital infrastructure projects and equipment purchases. We are also temporarily expanding the eligibility for this program's funding to allow airports in the national airport system, airports with fewer than 1 million annual passengers in 2019, to apply for funding under the program. For 2021-2022, our government has allocated funding under this program to 63 airports for 86 projects. From airports in Gander to Thunder Bay, Lethbridge, and Flin Flon, to airports in Fort Smith, Yellowknife, and Kamloops, our government is providing funding to ensure the continued safe operations of passengers, air crews, and employees.
The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation raided a Hindu temple in New Jersey. Some of the workers here were detained at the temple by a prominent Hindu sect and paid less than $1 an hour. Complained of being employed in conditions like slavery in the lawsuit. It is said that Bhoswami Akshar Purushottam Swami Narayan Sanatha, a Hindu sect known as PAPS. The sect is believed to have close ties with India's ruling party, the BJP, and has temple in various parts of the world. Hundreds of the lower caste men may have been exploited by the communalists during the years of construction works. These workers were hidden and kept in large trucks, and the promise of standard work allowances and hourly employment when camping in rural Robinos, New Jersey. The lawsuit states that they were promised adequate leave. The lawsuit seeks remuneration, and most of the petitioners belong to the Dalit community. So that's all we have in this edition. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more updated news.